Forge, Chapter 55. The hours and days flew after we learned that France had joined our side in the war. Even more men crowded into Moore Hall to conduct the business of the quartermaster's office in the commissary department. Before General Washington could lead the army against the British, General Greene had to make sure all the soldiers had shoes. General Brittle took over the parlor for his sleeping quarters and his duties as forge master. Two more assistants to General Greene moved in, and the Moore family was displaced so their chamber could be turned into an accessory office. The daily presence of so many junior commissary officers and ink-stained clerks kept Mrs. Cook and Isabel busy to distraction. The overwork led to a lowering of standards. One night, Mr. Bellingham instructed me to complain to Miss Cook about her less than clean plate and soggy bread. When I reported this to the kitchen, the old woman grew very red in the face and told Isabel to fetch her a clean apron. Once the apron was properly pinned, she smoothed her hair and walked into the dining room without knocking. The girl and the boy and me are doing work of 10 folk and cannot do the work of 11. Any gentleman not satisfied with the condition of the crockery or the taste of his grub is welcome to pitch in and help. Are there any complaints about the pudding? The gentlemen all spooned up their marrow pudding, tasted it, and pronounced it wonderful. That's as it should be, Mrs. Cook said. His Excellency General Washington decreed that the camp should celebrate the French alliance in high style, with a banquet for officers and a demonstration of marching and day of leisure for the soldiers. Isabel thought we would have a plan to flee during the celebration, but I knew we'd had to serve at the banquet. But when, Curzon? She asked. When indeed? When should we run? When, or would Ebenezer still help? How could we get word to him? Which distraction would we take? Every time I looked at Isabel, how we would remove the horror from her neck. Um, was she already tried every key she could find and broken fork to no avail? If I had access to forge and a bit short bit of wrought iron, I could try to hammer out the proper key shape, but only after days of work and generous helping of good luck. The only comfort I took that week was when Bellingham was fatigued and overworked as we were. The dark circles under his eyes made him look as if he had thrashed in a tavern overnight. It seemed no matter how many papers he read or letters he wrote, the columns of figures he added, there was more work to be done. It was a delight to behold. The night before the grand festivity, Bellingham worked late into the night, and I with him. He'd given me leave to polish General Greene's sword and uniform buttons in the dining room, so he would not have to shout to wake the household to get coffee or more cake. He opened the letter from the pile on the table and leaned closer to the candle to read it. When was the last time you saw Gideon? I did not look up. The day he left, when he was sick? I could feel his eyes on me, but I kept to my task. Did he die? He's run away from York. The congressman is rather stunned that Gideon would betray his trust in seeking his news about his whereabouts. Did you know of this? I rubbed the sword blade clean. To tell of Gideon's spying would put Isabel and me in danger. No, sir, I said. Gideon didn't like me much. We never talked. The grandfather clock struck 2 of the morning before Bellingham could answer. The lateness of the hour caught him unaware. Is the time correct? Yes, sir. He rubbed his eyes, then stretched his neck to both sides. I was going to wash up before bed. I wanted to look my best form tomorrow, rather today. Will you tell Isabel to start heating water for me as soon as she wakes? If I may, sir, I said. Ever the perfect manservant. I have bathing water ready now. The kitchen is quiet and private at this hour. If you can bear a few more minutes of wakefulness, you'll be fresh and clean on the morrow. That's a brilliant notion, Curzon. Thank you, sir. I'll spare you the details of Bellingham's disrobing, assisting with a bath as long as I've been serving folks, at least, or is, at, assisting with a bath has long been serving folks' least favorite duty after chamber pot cleaning. Once he'd removed every stitch of clothing and the cord around his neck that held the key to Isabel's collar and folded himself into the soaking tub in front of the fire, I handed him a block of soap and a cloth for scrubbing. I laid his clothing neatly on the back of the chair. Shall I set up a screen in case anyone wanders through to use the privy? Thank you, Curzon. I'm so tired. I would not have thought of it until it were too late. I murmured a polite noise. When I set up the wooden screen, Bellingham rubbed the soap on his hands and rubbed his hands together, then squeezed his eyes shut and scrubbed his face. A cool breeze came through the open window, causing the candles to sputter. I shut the window before he could tell me to do so. The candles on the kitchen table had burned down to the to guttering islands of soft wax lakes and did not have much more light to give. If I may, sir, I need to fetch a few candles from the pantry. The stubs won't last long. Bellingham soaped his neck. Do what you must. I stepped to the other side of the privacy screen and picked up one of the candles. A thin stream of wax spilled over the base of the pudding, or of the puddled on the table. When I was little, I used to amuse myself by sticking buttons and forks into soft wax, and then showing the impression they made to my father. A chill shook me, as if I had not closed the window. I was standing an arm's length away from the key to Isabel's collar. I glanced cautiously around the screen. Bellingham had lifted a foot out of the water to wash it. I quietly stole the key from the top of his folded clothes and pressed it into the wax, then said a prayer and lifted it carefully and checked to make sure that no wax was stuck to the metal. As Bellingham splashed the water on his face to rinse away the soap, I returned the key to where he'd last seen it. By the time he called for a towel, the plate that contained the wax impression had been hidden in the larder, and I was putting out new candles so that he did not trip in the darkness.